John, one guy who ought to know about this is our guest right now, joining us to talk about the latest Obamacare delay, what is happening overseas, and within our borders. We can talk to the former senior advisor to Presidents Nixon, Ford, and Reagan, Patrick J. Buchanan. And we should point out, Pat, you have also been a candidate for the presidency yourself. Let's begin with the current president, working as you did with notables like President Reagan. This whole thing with Mr. Obama and yet another Obamacare delay. What do you make of it?
Well, it testifies even further, if further testimony were needed, J.D., that this is perhaps the worst rollout of any major program in American political history, and that the people who put it together had no idea what they were doing, and that it really is it really is a gathering disaster that reflects not only on the administration itself, but on its philosophy, the idea that government has the answers to America's problems.
And in your mind, does this become enough of an indictment of the left and big government to see not only a reaction in the midterms, but will the Republicans move to repeal it, or are you going to see more of that, oh, we can modify some things on the part of the establishment GOP, Pat?
I think what this has done, it has clearly discredited Barack Obama as a executive and as a leader, and his administration. It is a wholesale indictment of their incompetence. But more importantly is the point you made, J.D., which is it indicts the entire idea. The great idea of the Democratic Party, of American liberalism, is in the really big problems in America, the way to solve them and the efficient and successful and proper way to solve them is with major government programs brought together by political figures of the left and the center, and that's the way America advances. That idea has been discredited, I think, for a decade, if not a generation. I cannot see another Hillary Care or Obamacare or program of that magnitude even being attempted by the federal government before the next decade in this country. But I do think that that politically it is almost a mortal blow to the reputation of the President of the United States.
Well, Mr. Buchanan, one more question on this before we move on and talk about the situation in the Ukraine. You know, we heard Dan Pfeiffer leading up to your interview telling David Gregory that there was not going to be a delay, and before that, Kathleen Sebelius is testifying before the House Ways and Means Committee, being asked specifically, are there going to be any delays for the individual mandate after March 31st? Now, the question, I guess, would be, were they not informed, or were they lying in those two very public forums when they told the audiences there, and including members of Congress, that there were in fact going to be no delays after March 31st?
I don't know that they were lying, that they were deliberately saying something was false. The truth is, they don't know all the problems in this program. Kathleen Sebelius, she's been wrong again and again and again. I mean, I don't understand why she is still in her job. I don't think she knows how many problems are inside this thing, because I don't think she knew any more about it than Nancy Pelosi, who said we got to pass it to find out what's in it. And what's happening is one of these explosions after another goes off. They don't know what else is out there in the minefield. And so they give us assurances as we walk forward.
And the incompetence issue might be something that's even more scary than if they did know about it and they were lying on those two instances. But we'll move on.
And speaking of incompetence and uncertainty, perhaps to be more diplomatic, Patrick J. Buchanan, let's move overseas to the Ukraine. You have spoken of what has transpired in Crimea and have some thoughts that may go against the grain of the foreign policy establishment here in the United States. Give us your take on Crimea, the Ukraine, and what is about to unfold there overseas.
Okay, my view is this. I think this is not some long premeditated takeover of Crimea. I think what happened was Putin won the battle to have Crimea under Yanukovych to join his economic union, and then he saw crowds forming in the street, and they were fighting police and burning buildings and capturing buildings, and he executed basically an overthrow of an incompetent and corrupt regime. And then he saw Ukraine being reoriented back toward Europe and away from Russia. And I think he said at that point, we may have lost them politically, diplomatically, and economically, but I cannot lose my strategic base on the Black Sea, the Sebastopol base, the home of the Black Sea Fleet. And I think he ordered his forces inside Ukraine, inside Crimea, already in their bases. Get off your uniforms and put on neutral uniforms and go out, and we are going to take the Crimea back for Russia. We got 60% of it is Russian. The majority will vote to accept it. So go ahead and grab it. In other words, it was a strategic response, a reaction to what had happened. But I think, Putin is not enormously strengthened by this other than diplomatically and politically at home. He may be at 70%, but he doesn't have a single base now that he didn't have and any greater a strategic position against the United States. And I don't think he wants a second Cold War so much as he wants really to make himself, if you will, the man who brought most or all of the Russian peoples home to Russia and who is the protector of the Russian peoples. I don't think he wants to control Poland or East Germany or Romania or Bulgaria ever again. I mean, they were too expensive, and that's why we won the Cold War, or one of the reasons we won it.
So do you discount reports today? We're hearing that it appears that Russian troops are massed in the direction of Moldova. And
well, Moldova, I'm not sure how they get there. Moldova is pretty much landlocked. I believe that's the old northern Bukovina and Bessarabia, which once belonged to Romania. But he's got troops in Transnistria, which is a breakaway province from Moldova, and it broke away back the way South Ossetia broke away from Georgia when it broke away from Russia. Now, I cannot believe that he's going to try to take over Moldova. I find that very hard to believe. That he might want to move Transnistria into Russia as well, that's possible. But the Moldovans are not Russians. They're much more Romanian. And again, I would be terribly surprised. But, J.D., I'll tell you what there is a danger of. Take down a map, and you will see that Crimea is basically an island as far as Russia is concerned. The only land bridge into Crimea is controlled by Ukraine, and Russians have to travel hundreds of miles through Ukraine to get into the Crimean Peninsula. On the east end of the Crimean Peninsula is the Kerch Peninsula. And that was World War II. There were great battles fought with the Russians, and there was a bridge that was attempted to be built from Kerch over into Russia. It's about a bridge which would have been about as long as the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and the architect of it was Albert Speer, and he had to get out of there very rapidly.
Yeah.
But so this is a landlocked, this is basically an island as far as Russia is concerned. It has to be fed by air and by sea, and Russia cannot really handle that if it were cut off by Ukraine.
Patrick J. Buchanan, we'll have to close it right there. We appreciate your geopolitical analysis of the situation in the Ukraine. We'll keep our eye on that, and we look forward to having you back in the not-too-distant future here on America's Forum.
Okay, hope I wasn't too long in that answer.
You were marvelous. Patrick J. Buchanan, you're always great, and we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Take it easy, my friend.
You too.
It's not that he went too long. Our time is too short here.
That's what happened. Sure, it's television.
That's right. You don't want to go up against head-to-head and Pat Buchanan in a map test. He knows his area. We'll be back after this.